Welcome back to Dawn of the Lake, Lakeside Quilt Making Arts. We're about to interject something into Mars that has not been discussed yet. And it may be controversial. You guys may all have opinions, and I want to hear them. I'm not saying keep them to yourself. I want to hear them. I had a surprise phone call from my cousin yesterday. She had watched my video about Mars. I never hear from her, so it was a delightful thing. And she had some really interesting thoughts. One of them I am just jumping on to adopt, and that is how to handle the crust meeting up with the civilization, the settlement. Like here, I didn't love the idea that this was kind of in the same family as this. It's going to just kind of blur the lines, and we all kind of like it when there's a really saturated color up against this, or this deep red that's up against it looks really good. But she had this thought of putting like a border around it, a binding on it almost. And I fell in love with that idea. She had the thought of a different color, but this is pretty much, I think this is only 2 little strips of this fabric that I have left. So I would have to go and buy fabric. But we can use these 2 little samples to kind of simulate what I am envisioning. And then I want to walk you through that, the rest of the thoughts as this design is changing. So the thought is we would put a binding, we, as in you and I, would put a binding, maybe even like a little bit of a flange binding, right here. It needs to be smaller than that, more narrow. So if that goes all the way around the civilization, then it gives us a visual break from any of the colors in the crust. And I don't want to commit myself that the only color of the crust that meets this binding is this really dark red. I do like the red up against it, but if I have that there all the way around, and let me get this one prepared too, and we'll get it set up. Maybe we'll put it up here. The reason I'm picking this color is even from the very beginning, I was thinking that I would use this color as the binding, that we would use it as a binding because it would represent kind of like the, like a force-filled dome that would be over the civilization so that people can live and breathe on Mars. Partly why I just jumped on her idea is it makes more sense that the dome is around the civilization and not around Mars. That you would have domes around individual civilizations, and then you travel from one city or one settlement to another, and then the dome is just over that settlement. And that makes sense that that is represented over just the individual settlement. Does that make sense? Are you guys with me? Can you visualize my future Mars settlement? Here we go. That kind of helps us for our eye to follow that it would just be all the way around the settlement. And then you don't have to worry so much about what color is up against it. That's the color I was thinking about. I think the color that she was thinking about was using this red to do this. And then you can have any color up in here. But I really like this idea because for me, it represents that dome, that force field. So you can live on Mars. So you have to vote too. You have to let me know what your thoughts are. I really like this idea, but if you have another thought, let me know. So the next thing is, then I would build out the entire crust. And this is going to be in a circle, right? You may hear the dogs fighting in the background. It is dinner time and they're trying to get my attention. Plus, they're just getting more energetic as it's time to eat. But you know what? They're being pleasant, so I'm not going to get on to them. So a circle of crust because Mars is a round planet, right? And then you would applique with a zigzag that onto a black and navy background that is in a rectangle. So that you get the concept that this round orb, the planet, is setting into space. I don't want to put a binding around this because I don't want texture that kind of separates it. I want it to be a smoother border, but I would applique it with a little tiny zigzag all the way around onto a fabric yet to be determined, probably pieced together and not just one piece of fabric so that we're getting a rectangular quilt. So of course we talked about how it was 40 inches from here to that, from the center to the edge, so it'd be like an 80-inch quilt even before we get to adding our outer space section to it. We don't want it to grow a lot on this furthest point. At 80 inches or a little bit over 80 inches, it's going to be fine for a queen size bed. It's going to be way too big for a twin. That's fine for a queen. And I mean, this is a young boy. He'll probably have it the rest of his life. You know, it may live on his sofa in college. Who knows? He is a smart little boy. And I do expect him to go to college. And I just have this vision of him dating in college. And this is draped over his sofa. And he's telling some girl about his aunt that made it for him. And, you know, it was that idea that he was going to work for NASA and he was going to create a space suit so people could live on Mars. And that's what inspired this. And that's what inspired him to go to school. I just see him telling somebody that one day. And it's that little narrative in my head that helps me to draw out what I'm going to be doing on the quilt and keeps on motivating me to come back to it too. It's not a fine piece of artwork. It's not. And I didn't mean for it to at any point. I meant for it to be fun. And that's what it is. And he's going to enjoy it and he's going to love on it. But I'm going to treat it with respect, even though I know it's not a show quilt or anything like that. I'm still trying to do things well. All of my seams on the inside look good. Now, all of this is a lot more haphazard. You know, I just had to give myself some grace. But how I do each step, I'm still trying to honor the idea that this is a legacy quilt for a young person. My lawn guy is here. He's making noise outside, and you're probably hearing him. So I'm going to cut this video short. Just wanted you to see what I'm up to in regards to this. I hope you guys are enjoying moving the needle in your studio. And please consider liking, sharing, commenting. I love the comments so much. I love hearing from you and being involved with you on these projects. It helps to further the YouTube algorithm so that we can do more on our legacy Avery quilts. And that's awesome. You know, it helps me out tremendously. So if you don't mind doing that, it's free for you. And it means a lot to me. So take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.